Hey folks, my guest today is Henry Shapiro. He's the co-founder of Reclaim.ai, an intelligent calendar assistant used by over 6,000 companies across the globe. Before starting the company, he led product and marketing teams at New Relic for 5 years. He's based out of Portland, Oregon. Henry, you ready to take us to the top?
Yeah, let's go
All
for
right,
it.
so this is a super tough space. X.ai came on the scene a couple years ago, raised a boatload of money, and then basically flash sold for, and no one made any money basically on that deal recently. Calendly is very hot there, I think, on your cap table as well. What are you doing different in the space where you're seeing like extreme stickiness on your customer base?
It's a great question. So I think the first thing is, and thanks for having me, by the way.
Of course.
Um, the first thing is I think we really, when we started the company, our intention was not, hey, let's go out and build a better calendar, or let's go out and build a better scheduling service. We came out of obviously New Relic and had experienced kind of the pain firsthand of being, busy middle managers who were constantly just trying to kind of grapple to get every last little bit of time that we could for our priorities, and constantly running into that challenge of like the calendar sort of feeling like a debt you have to pay down every week instead of an actual reflection of the work you need to get done. And so we actually came at this problem being sort of dev and monitoring nerds, not even thinking about the calendar. Initially, we only were thinking about this problem of like, how do you get people and teams focused on the right stuff? And I think because we asked that question first, instead of asking the question of like, well, the calendar sucks, let's build a new calendar, or scheduling sucks, let's build a better scheduler. We really tried to hone in on like the workflows and automation that people need. And we really leaned into the existing platforms like Google Calendar, like Calendly instead. And so I think part of what makes us sticky is we're not asking people to go out and adopt an entirely new calendar service or platform. We're not going out and asking people to adopt, in many cases, even an entirely new like task manager. We're acting as sort of a hub for intelligently scheduling the time that you need and keeping it flexible so that you're sort of able to accommodate other types of commitments.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that's a little different about how we approach this space that kind of gets into some of the, I have to call it the secret sauce of the product is, we recognize that time blocking was one of those things that like, if it was just as easy as me going on my calendar Sunday night and blocking out every single event and putting the word busy on it, there probably wouldn't be much software or much opportunity around this space. There's kind of two problems that people run into when they try to block their time out. The first is that it's not adaptive, so it doesn't sort of accommodate inbound conflicts. The second, and the one that we really try to address, is it's just not realistic. If you're the kind of person who has a really slammed calendar, you need to be available for meetings. You need to be available for collaboration. And actually, if you block out your whole calendar, you're probably creating even more work for yourself, because now you've got like people pinging you on Slack and saying, hey, there's no time on your calendar. Can I get a few minutes? Can you move this thing? And so what we do is we actually kind of act like a circuit breaker for your calendar, where if you've got plenty of time during the week to get your stuff done, we'll kind of look at that and we'll run simulations. We run millions of simulations daily against calendars and basically try to figure out, like, are you running out of time to do this thing? And if the answer is no, we'll put the time down, but we'll mark it as free. In fact, when we scheduled this meeting, it overlapped with a habit that I had, but that habit was marked as free, and
What's
Reclaim
the
just
habit?
removed it. The habit was reviewing PRs. I spend a lot of time here reviewing pull requests and making sure that the team's staying on track. And
Love that.
and so that gets moved to later in the afternoon. And actually, it got marked as busy. I was just looking at my calendar because Reclaim was like, "Hey, you're running out of time to get this thing done."
So
So
Henry,
I just think we're a little more,
the
yeah.
product makes sense to me. Just I want to get as much in as we can here in the 15 minutes. So the product makes total sense to me. Take me a little bit into, if people want to use this thing, what's the average customer paying you per month to use the tech?
Currently, right now, we're a free product.
Oh,
So
full free. Okay.
we're pre-monetization. We're being used, as I mentioned, across a little over 6,000 companies today, meaning we have anywhere from several to dozens to hundreds of users inside of these companies, and we're spreading pretty quickly.
So how do you
Um,
think about like, and first off, do you have any need to put up a pricing paywall, or how long can you go without charging? I mean, you look at
yeah,
your burn, your headcount, et cetera.
yeah, we're in a good position in terms of monetization. We're basically, I'd say, a couple years away from the sort of the edge of the cliff, and we're at a really good point in terms of product market fit and sort of the demand for the product. And so we've actually had a pricing page up on our site for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we put pricing out there because we know that it's really hard for people to standardize on anything if they don't really know what to expect once the thing becomes, a paid product.
So how does that work? You have it up, but you basically have it crossed out. It says free through 2021. And is this basically enabling you to drive urgency? So people are like, you're like, sign up this year because we're going to charge soon.
Not only that, we have a referral program where you can refer people to Reclaim and get future credit against paid Reclaim. And that's actually been a really successful program for us.
That's super interesting. Now, you can only afford to do this, though, because you've raised capital, right? So talk to me about your funding story. How much have you raised to date?
Yeah, we've raised 6.3 million in total. We had a pretty unconventional path, I'd say, to fundraising. We, left New Relic. We're sort of we had been working on this concept for a little while.
What year was that, by the way? When did you launch? 2019?
We launched in 2020. Our first feature was January 2020, but we incorporated in June of 2019, and we left New Relic in April. And so we were, having a lot of discussions with investors kind of pre-product. And I wrote an article about it on TechCrunch if you're interested. But basically, we kind of got to this place where the story alone was not basically getting us to the terms that we really wanted to see and to the investors that we really wanted to see. And so we sort of took a step back and we said, like, look, we're pretty incremental people by nature, and we tend to sort of err on the side of shipping to learn. And so we ended up raising a very, very small, relatively small chunk of money that was just basically enough for Patrick and I, my co-founder, to basically start building the product together.
How much was that, Henry?
We raised about $500,000 on safes, and then we raised another $1 million in safes about 6 months after that.
Okay, so like 1.5 million pre-seed, basically.
That was essentially our pre-seed round.
Yeah,
and the safe route was nice because it sort of kept kept the process pretty light.
Henry, why'd you have to do that though? I mean, look, I'm a big fan. Like, obviously, if you're going to go to the VC route, you got to go hard on the VC route. You can also stay bootstrapped and go bootstrapped and have more freedom. Pay yourself in cash flow. Why did you? Most people are selling 20% of their business in the pre-seed round like this. I imagine you guys probably did something similar, right? So why did you need this 1.5 million?
Well, I mean, first of all, we needed to be able to, hire our first. Patrick's a Java engineer. I work a bit on the design and operations side of things, but neither of us was a full stack developer, and we knew that a big part of this was going to rely on, the front end user experience. And so we brought on our first engineer with that money, and our first couple full stack engineers with that money. Other kinds of normal things. It's nice to have healthcare. It's nice not to be, super, super stressed about, the change in pace.
So you didn't leave New Relic then with like a bunch of savings where you gave yourselves like a year of runway to experiment with a new product?
We did. I mean, we weren't paying ourselves very, very good money. I mean, I would say we were definitely in the sort of ramen salary category for a good long time. We did leave New Relic, I think, with a healthy enough nest egg to take the plunge. But obviously that also has its own stressors associated with it. Honestly, I think our biggest calculation was like, look, we really want investors at the table here who believe in what we're doing and who believe in kind of the vision of what we're going toward. And at the time, we didn't have a product, and we didn't have users, and we didn't have proof that the thesis would work. And so a big part of what we were trying to do was kind of bring a group of sort of people we had worked with in the past, people that kind of believed in us as product and growth people.
Well, so how did Geoff Harris and Heather Redmond, like at Flying Fish, did they know you from New Relic? How do you know them?
They approached us after we had actually started building. So that 500,000 basically took us to get our first feature out, which was this calendar sync feature, which we launched on Producton. Got quite a bit of traction on that. And then we launched a feature called Habits. We launched the very early version of Habits, which at the time was literally just like lunch and catch up. It was like a separate feature where you could block time for email and block time for lunch. And they approached us not long after that and asked if we'd be interested. And we asked them if they'd be open to doing a smaller round. At that time, we were like, look, we're building really quickly. Raising's awesome, but we're just not ready to take that step yet. We're in a really good groove here. And would you be open to doing a smaller amount of money on a safe? And then as we get to the seed round, we'll include you there as well.
Okay.
And they were open to that.
So 1.5 what, fair to say like a 6-7 million valuation, something like that? You sold 20%?
I'm trying to remember. I believe it was a capped note, and I think the cap was 10. And I think we added a discount as well.
Wow, that's nice. Okay, so you got little premium terms there because your history maybe at New Relic, if you were close to the problem. That's great. Now you raised a little bit more after the 1.5. When was the last round?
The last round closed, I believe we announced it in May of this year, and that was for 4.8. And that was across Index led the round, Shardul Shah at Index Ventures, and then Gradient, who we had actually spoken with in our first funding go round, came in and added some to it as well. And then we actually went through this pretty long process that I think made the round take a lot longer to close, but I think
How long?
It probably took 2-3 months, I'd say, in total to get everything fully closed.
Yep.
A big part of that was that we brought 40 or 50 other strategic angels, including Taupe from Calendly, into the cap table. And it was one of those decisions. I think our sense was like, this is really the time you get to bring those people into the cap table where it makes sense for them. And so
how do you structure that, Henry? Because this is an art, right? So you get $1 million or $2 million committed from like traditional funds. What's the cold email that you send to Taupe? What's the subject line? How do you get 40 of these? You have your hit list, your wish list. How do you get them committed?
I almost think of it more as like pools. We had pools of people that were in our network that we knew of, that we were like, these are great people we want to work with, and we think they might be interested in investing. There were people that the institutionals who we were working with introduced us to, and including Shardul and at the time MZ from Gradient. Taupe was an interesting story because Taupe actually we met because Patrick hung out in a Slack channel where a number of folks basically Mixmax, excuse me, Calendly, a number of other calendar services hang out in there. And we all talk about various bugs that we're running into with the Google Calendar API. There was this issue that had been plaguing all of us for like 2 months where Google would just totally crap the bed every week or so, almost like clockwork. Patrick was part of the kind of group that identified the issue, and he worked with Calendly's VP of engineering to troubleshoot and triage it. We knew we wanted to talk to Taupe as part of our round, and so we said, hey, if you'd be interested in introducing us to him, we'd love to talk to him. And we got along pretty well.
That makes sense. So 40, 50 angels, and that's great. Obviously, power user base, influencers, one-to-many sort of approach. As we're running out of time here, so some quick stuff. What did you put in that seed slide deck, right, to show valuation growth from the 10 million? Because if you're not wanting to get super diluted, you've got to raise 4.8 at like a 40 or 50 pre, right? When you're pre-revenue still, right? So like, what story were you telling in that deck?
I think the big story that we were telling was, a couple things. So the first is, this is a sort of a nascent market where there is a lot of sort of, I would call it sort of a lot of overlapping opportunity. And we're kind of right at the center of project management, scheduling, and calendaring, both of which are kind of these, interesting and sort of growing markets. I think the biggest thing, though, that convinced investors was ultimately user stickiness and user engagement.
What was that? 6,000 users. How do you define stickiness?
Stickiness for us is are people coming back on a regular basis to interact with are they basically interacting with the system day to day? Are they using it to plan their week? Are they relying on it?
So what are your weekly active users today?
We measure them in monthly active users. I could grab the weekly numbers for you, but our monthly active users today are about 16,000. When you said customers, you said 60,000, not 6,000, 60,000? 16.
Sorry, how many? Okay, got it. 16,000. You call them customers. They're users. 16,000 users at least once a month.
Yep.
And that was up from 4,000 about a year ago.
Yep.
So that 4x growth, that's the main number you use in that deck to show your growth, show your getting closer to product market fit, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think also just the element of like the problem we were going after was a little different than, say, just scheduling or just calendaring. We were really oriented around this idea that the long-term vision for the business wasn't just to be a productivity tool. It was actually to help organizations and teams be better aligned to their priorities. And so I think that story resonated with investors, but I think more than anything, they were seeing that, early signs of product market fit and early signs that people were depending on the product to actually plan their week.
Yeah, you've launched a bunch of things, right? Habits by Reclaim. Actually, Justin, my friend at Yak, I'm a small investor at Yak.
Oh, nice.
Did it.
Yeah.
Love that tool. I use it every day. But you've launched a bunch of these things, I think, to get out of just the, hey, we don't want to be the next X.ai that raises a bunch and flops because we're not thinking about product. So makes complete sense there. And then look, I mean, fair to say that was at like a 35, 40 million valuation, somewhere in there.
Probably a little bit less than that, but yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So you guys did take a bit of a dilution there, but it sounds like you got some really incredible people on board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with where we ended up in terms of total amount raised and where we diluted. I think when we talked to peers in our space, we ended up diluting pretty close to where we expected to with a seed
round. It's like 15% for a seed round, right? I mean, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And what's team size today? How many folks?
11 people, myself included.
Very cool. Well, this will be fun to watch as you turn on the paywall. I love the urgency you've created with, free through May, sign up now. And as long as they stay sticky, man, you set yourself up to have a paywall conversion rate that's really, really high once you do introduce it. So come back on in a year, give us an update. But in the meantime, man, let's wrap up with the famous 5. Number 1, favorite business book?
Good Strategy, Bad Strategy.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Honestly, none comes to mind.
Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building Reclaim besides your own?
Favorite online tool for building Reclaim? It's kind of a lame answer, but Intercom keeps us connected to our customers.
All right. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Between 5 and 6.
All right. And situation, married, single, kids?
Well, single with a partner, I should say. A partner. For tax purposes, I'm single.
Any kiddos or no?
No kiddos.
No kids. And how old are you?
I am 32.
32. Last question. Something you wish you knew when you were 20.
It was not a huge mistake to major in history.
Guys, there you have it. Reclaim.ai, a new approach to claiming your calendar. They started, call it 2-3 years ago. They had 4,000 users about a year ago, now up to 16,000 users. 4.8 seed round raised recently, team of 11 as they think about what a calendar in 2022 should look like. Paywall not launched yet, but they have had a pricing page up just to understand user sentiment around pricing, using it right now as urgency to drive those new users who stay pretty darn sticky. We'll see what happens in 2022. Henry, thanks for taking us to the top.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
One more thing before you go. We have a brand new show every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. It's called Shark Tank for SaaS. We call it Deal or Bust. One founder comes on, 3 hungry buyers, they try and do a deal live, and the founder shares back-end dashboards, their expenses, their revenue, ARPU, CAC, LTV, you name it, they share it. And the buyers try and make a deal live. It is fun to watch every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central. Additionally, remember, these recorded founder interviews go live. We release them here on YouTube every day at 2 p.m. Central. To make sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you click the subscribe button below here on YouTube, the big red button, and then click the little bell notification to make sure you get notifications when we do go live. I wouldn't want you to miss breaking news in the SaaS world, whether it's an acquisition, a big fundraise, a big sale, a big profitability statement, or something else. I don't want you to miss it. Additionally, if you want to take this conversation deeper and further, we have by far the largest private Slack community for B2B SaaS founders. You want to get in there. We've probably talked about your tool if you're running a company or your firm if you're investing. You can go in there and quickly search and see what people are saying. Sign up for that at nathanlatka.com/Slack. In the meantime, I'm hanging out with you here on YouTube. I'll be in the comments for the next 30 minutes. Feel free to let me know what you thought about this episode. And if you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up. We get a lot of haters that are mad at how aggressive I am on these shows, but I do it so that we can all learn. We have to counter those people. We got to push them away. Click the thumbs up below to counter them and know that I appreciate your guys' support. All right, I'll be in the comments. See ya.